Hi, I'm Opal Mitchell. I work for the Central Arkansas Library System and I work at the Nixon Library branch. Today I'm doing Sewing 101, and for this program I'm going to cover how you would make a buttonhole with your sewing machine. We have a brother, a singer, and a genome, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, I'm not sure. And so I'm going to demonstrate it on the brother, and I think I'll have time to probably show you how to also, they have an adapter for sewing a button on there too, so I'm going to show you how to do that with this machine. Also, if I have time, I may go over to the singer or the genome and show you how those work. But I'm mostly going to stick with the brother because that's the one I've practiced with and I know how to do the buttonhole on that one. So so that's what I'm going to cover today. And then of course I always give a chance for people to ask questions during the program, and also a chance to ask questions at the end if you have questions. But that's what I'm planning on covering today. I also learned how to use a narrow hem foot on the brother, so depending on how things go, I might demonstrate that also. But I'm going to start off showing you how to do a buttonhole with the brother. I thought my brother machine, really whenever I was looking it up to see how to do a buttonhole, I looked at some videos on how to do it, because you know directions with the drawings that they have, if there's not an actual photo of what you're needing to do, it's a little harder to discern, figure out exactly what the picture is showing. So I initially, whenever I was figuring out how to do the buttonhole on my machine, I thought I had looked up a video on one that was the most similar to my machine, but I was not able to get it to work properly. So I had assumed, they were all the same, but they're not. Because even the adapter, I'll show you the adapter. This is the adapter for the buttonhole. And this looked just like the one in the video that I was looking at. The machine looked just like my machine, so I assumed it would work the same. But as I'll show you, I was doing it wrong, because with the machine they were using, this piece right here, let's see, you push this out to put a button back here to get the actual size of your button. This little piece that it hits right here, on my machine, you're supposed to put, there's another lever that pulls down that's supposed to go in front of this. I was putting it behind it because the video I watched, it was behind it. It was apparently it was a different model of a brother, even though it looked just like my machine. I'd made an assumption it was the same. So if I had looked a little closer, and I finally did look a little closer at the actual drawing in my manual, and it showed the little piece coming in front of it instead of behind it. And I was like, oh man, okay. If I'd actually read my directions better, which I didn't, I read over it quickly instead of being real careful about it. So I'm going to show you real quick. It works great. The only thing you have to play with is I went ahead and did a little, which is going to be reversed for you guys. I'm not real sure how. Actually, I guess if I reverse my camera it'll be better. But I wrote out what width it was, so I'd have a better idea. I'm going to switch this around so you can see this better. But I made a little template for myself, so when I do want to make a buttonhole, I'll know what settings I had set for my width, because with buttonholes, with this machine, you can set it at a 3, 4, or 5. And just depending on how you want your buttonhole to look will depend on which width that you're going to put it on. And I thought, what better than to have an example already sewn up for myself. And I even wrote at the top what pattern it was and what length it was, so because I played with it a lot, and it's good to play with it to really get it looking the way you want to before you actually do it on your machine. So I'm going to, that's interesting. The sewing machine is not coming on. Let's see. Huh. Well, that's fun. Let's see. I wonder if there's something wrong with the outlet. Huh. Well, let me make sure I plugged it in good. Maybe I didn't plug it in good. Because my other machines are working, but the one that I want to work. Okay. Oh, now it's working. Yay. Seems like I always have technical difficulties. Okay, so I'm going to turn this around. I always forget how to do this. Because I need to turn the camera around. And then I'm going to turn this whole thing around. Because I need the light, not on me, but on... here we go. And now we'll switch the camera. Alright. So, the wall looks really green with the camera. Okay. So I'm going to scoot this over. And I'm going to swap out, right now this machine has black thread on top and then black thread in the bobbin area. But I'm going to swap that out with white thread because I want to show you how to make sure that your tension is set correctly. And the best way to see with the buttonhole stitch is to have them at 2 different colors. Okay, so now this is viewing correctly, so it's not backwards. So it's good to do a little swatch like I did. And I'm going to brighten this up a little bit because it's kind of dark. Alright. I'll push the machine back. So this way, when you go to make one, you'll know how wide it's going to be, because you can see that that's the widest one, the opening. And so this was with 3 and 4 and 5. So if you have this already made ahead of time like I did, you'll know the next time you go to use it, whoops, I decided to move, then you'll know what setting to set it on without having to play with it ahead of time. And then the length, let me show you on this machine. That's going to be on this part back here. This is F, and that's on the length. So this gray knob does the length for this machine. And then this right here is the patterns. So if you look up here at your patterns, number 1 is for the buttonhole. So we'll switch this to number 1, and then we'll turn that to F to do our for the buttonhole. I'm looking at it because it looks weird on the camera. I want to make sure it's lined up correctly. Okay, so those settings are set correctly, and then the width is up here. This is the width, and this is my tension. The width, depending on, I'll go ahead and do the smaller one first, the number 3. So we're going to make sure that that's on 3. And it said, and I read on the other machines that we have here, the Singer and, raise this up a little bit more, the Janome, they also said whenever you're doing the buttonholes to change the tension, and it was better to have and I'll show you my examples that I did for tensions too. This is when I switched to purple thread on top and yellow on bottom. Well, you can see quite a bit of the yellow because there's yellow on the bottom. Oh, well, actually I have it upside down. The yellow was top. I just wrote it on the wrong side. But you can see your yellow on top, and then on the bottom you can see some of the yellow more on this one than you can on this one. So my tension was working pretty well on the 4, it looks like, because you mostly want each color like on its side. So that's on that side, and that's more on this side. You can see a little bit of yellow, but not a lot. And they said typically with the tension, you'll want to go down in the tension. And this one is a little more bumpy too, so I guess it really depends on how you want it to look. Because this one I kind of like the way this one's a little flatter, the one that was on 4. And the 3, it's more of a raised bump, and it's flatter on the back. So I guess the 3 would really be a better tension to set it at. So it's already set on 3 on this machine, which is a smaller tension. That's the upper tension of your machine. When it comes to tension, this particular machine, since your bobbin is a drop-in bobbin, you're really not going to be messing with the lower tension on it. Usually you're not going to. The ones that are the bobbins that are like on this machine, there is a way to change the tension on the lower. Oops, it fell out. On this one, whenever you're doing your tension, I'm going to pull that thread off of there, you're going to adjust this tiny little screw on here if you have problems with your lower tension. So this one you can actually adjust your lower tension, but the one, like the drop-in one, you typically don't have to adjust it. You're usually only going to have to worry about your upper tension, which is up here. And of course this one that has the other bobbin, they've got an upper tension too, and it's in the same place. So you'll see a lot of times like your tension is usually going to be closer to this area of the machine, because here's another different machine and here's their tension. It's right here in this area also. Typically all the knobs and stuff that control the length of your stitch, whatever type of pattern that you're going to be doing, typically it's going to be on this side of the machine, and that's the same way on this one. You've got your length here, which they've got theirs written on there, which is kind of nice. When you're new at sewing, it's nice to have that written on there. And this is obviously your patterns. So that helps with things. Mine didn't say that on any of them. It just had pictures. This is the type that I have. Mine has a few more patterns, but it's typically about the same. All the pattern numbers are here. The actual pattern pictures are here to let you know. And then your length is going to be here and your width is going to be here, which these other machines, their widths are kind of added into their pattern one. Because see, this one's got their widths right here, and this machine has got widths on here, right here. So it's on their pattern dial. These are a little more basic machines than this one right here. This one's got a lot more options on it than the Singer and the Janome that we have. But we didn't buy expensive machines for the library. We bought as much of affordable ones as we could. So they're not going to have all the bells and whistles. Brothers tend to be in the more affordable range, I've noticed, whenever I've been shopping for them. And they're pretty good machines. There's certain ones I'm not as fond of the Brothers too. We've owned one that I'm not real crazy about the way it's set up, but because its tension is an actual knob in this area, and you turn it, and we had problems with thread getting wrapped around it and so forth, and it just wasn't a very great machine to have, because when you have people learning how to use machines. Alright, so I'm switching this out to where I've got the white bobbin on the bottom and I've got the black bobbin on top. And those of you that were watching last week, and I told you there was a few things about my machine that I wondered if it was similar to the other machines, which one of them was on the dial up here, the little thing that shows you whenever if you line it up here on top, then your needle is going to be at the right height to use your threader. Well, and this is like my machine. Well, I looked, let's see, which one was it? Yep, it's this one. it also has a little place on it too. So this is a Singer, a different model and everything, which it doesn't have a threader on it, but it's giving you the correct height that you need to have your needle at in order to thread it, and in order to have this piece all the way at the top so you can wrap your top thread over it. And the Janome does not feel like, nope, they didn't mark theirs, so they didn't do that with their machine. So you're going to find that option on some of them, but not all of them. So that was kind of interesting to see. I was kind of curious myself. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and there was I made a flub on the video I did, the very first one for Sewing 101, where I told people when you're turning your dial on the side here, I told you to turn it away from you. No, I don't know why I said that. I don't know why it came out of my mouth wrong, but you're supposed to always turn it towards you, which is counterclockwise. And you're not supposed to turn it the other direction because, like I said before, it can cause the threads to get tangled up on the inside with the bobbin. So please forgive me. I did not mean to make that flub, but I don't know why I said that. I'm glad I watched the video to see that it came out of my mouth wrong. I'm so sorry. But yeah, don't ever turn that knob away from you. Always turn it towards you. So I'm going to turn it towards me and pick up my thread. And let's see here. Come on. I guess I didn't. It got hung up. Aw, really? You're not going to work nicely for me. Yeah, okay. Let's do it again. Come on. Ah, it worked so great on my machine last week. And now this one is, let me make sure that I put my bobbin in correctly, because I bet that was probably what happened. Alright, so here's my bobbin, and the thread is on this side, so you can see. I'm putting it in, dropping it in this way. And then with this machine, so y'all can see, there's a little thing that you put it behind. I'll put that on. Well, maybe that's the problem. I'm going to move the actual sewing machine closer so you guys can see more of what's going on here. Make sure that's pulled all the way over there. And I'm going to hold this thread here. And you don't want to stay on that side, do you? Maybe if I put this here, maybe you will work. Okay, so I'm going to turn it towards me. And it should just pick up the thread and let me pull it up. There it goes. That's what it was supposed to do last time, but it didn't. Then I'm going to pull it loose. Alright, so I'm going to pull all these underneath here. And whenever you're changing out your sewing feet on your machine, I'm going to get a button too. The neat thing about this, I like this one because it lets you it figures out what size your buttonhole needs to be for you by you putting your button in the end here, like so. And you just tighten it as much as it will tighten. I think that's as tight as it will go. Yeah. So you put your button in there, and it figures out the length of your buttonhole. I wonder why that's so loose. Mine didn't seem that loose. But, okay. Alright, so you're supposed to turn your machine off whenever you're changing out your sewing feet. So don't mind me. I'm leaving the light on so y'all can see, because you won't be able to see up in there as well. And now I'm going to lift this up even more, because that's something neat that I didn't realize my machine would do, was the lever, even though it's up, if you push up more, it goes up even more for you. And now I'm letting it all the way down to snap into place. Alright, so there I've got that. This one also has a little thing in the back that you pull down, and this is for making your buttonholes. The thing that I messed up on mine, I watched a video, and here I'll show you how. The video I watched, it showed that this little piece right here went in front. Apparently it was a different model of a Brother machine, not the one I was using. So the one I was using, it stays behind this piece right here. And also, to get it started, you have to push it back. It clicks back into place. That kind of sets everything. So I've got some fabric here. I'm going to slide it in there. And normally you would go ahead and have your buttonhole measured to figure out exactly where you want to place this, and you would place it where you would want to start your buttonhole. And I'll show you on this, my little example. With this machine, if you look at the manual, it shows you it's going to do this bottom little half first. So it's going to do those stitches first, then it's going to do this row, and then it's going to do the back row, and then it's going to come back forward. So you just are pushing down the pressure foot to let it sew during this time period, and when it gets down here, then you'll take your foot off the pressure pedal to stop sewing, and you'll be done with your sewing and the button. And then I haven't ripped mine out, but you just take a seam ripper to open up the actual hole. So just like that. So there's that. And let me find, where did my pressure foot go? It was way over somewhere else. I guess because I've been scooting things around. And don't make your buttonhole immediately whenever you're getting started, because get some fabric that's a test fabric that's really similar. Or whenever you're cutting out your patterns, you always have some leftover fabric. Use some of that leftover fabric so you can get as close to the type of fabric that you're going to be, sewing on, so you'll know you'll get the same results. And I'm just going to turn my knob until I start with the needle in the fabric there. Alright, so let's hope that this all works the way it's supposed to. Let's see. Alright, that thread was getting tangled with other things. I'm going to cut it off because I don't want everything to get tangled together. Yeah. And then I'll show you how to do the buttonhole. Okay. And just kind of hold this loosely because you want to not get it, I want to make sure this is going to, I've got all my settings set the way it's supposed to, and yet it's not doing, I don't believe it's doing what it's supposed to. Oh, there it goes. Was not acting like it did last time. Hold that thread this way. And you guys can't see what it's doing real well, so I'm going to lift y'all up and tilt you forward. And it's always good to do a test one. Okay, it's made it all the way back to the front again. So you're going to turn your dowel until it's all the way up. And we're going to pull this out of there and cut it off on the cutter. And then you kind of inspect it and see if it looks the way you want it to look. I'm not real crazy about it looking like a zigzag. That's not really the way I did mine last time. My length, okay. So it's interesting that different machines will sew. I'll show you the one on my machine. That's the one I did at home. It looks really quite different. I think it might have something to do with the tension, possibly. So I'm gonna adjust my tension because I was using 4. I wonder why it's using less thread. And that's another reason to play with it, to see how it's going to look. Because, let's see, and we did that on 4. And that's the way. Oh, I see. And also this side looks a little bit different. This machine is a little bit different. When you're doing buttonholes, it has a little knob here that you can adjust, and what it adjusts is the right hand side of your stitches here. This right side here has more gaps in it than the left side. And to adjust the left side, you adjust this up here. To adjust the right side, you turn this. And so in order to get that to look differently, I'll have to adjust those. So if I don't really like the way that looks, then alright, so we're going to switch. And it's funny, that was my machine, and it's the same type of machine as the one that I have. So you would think, in a second, I'm going to look. I'm going to look here real quick, because it said to adjust those if you want them to be a little closer together. So if I want that to look that way, and it's set on F right now, and you're supposed to, if the right side of the buttonhole is too open or tight, adjust the feed of the material with the stitch length dial, which is the dial here on the side. So that's for the length, that gray knob that we have here, this one right here. And so, so you have to turn it, if I want it tighter, then I go this way, which I'm kind of surprised that it would want me to do that, because I didn't have to adjust mine that much. And then that's for the left side here, if I wanted that tighter. And then for the left side, if I want it tighter, then I have to adjust this right here. And then let's see here, to do that I would turn it, let's see, it looks like I would turn it to the minus to make it, yeah, just from the photo is what it looks like. So we'll adjust that. Let me get a little screwdriver. And that's why it's good. Oh, and someone is asking, are you saving this video? Yes, after we finish the video, I always save it to our Nixon Library Facebook page. And even the previous videos I did, I've done them, this is my third one. You can go back and watch those too. So I'm going to turn, well, I might do better if I had money, because that's not, I don't have any money with me, but I do have some keys. Let's see if my keys will turn it, because I want to turn it to demonstrate. Yeah, that works better. So I'm going to adjust it just a tiny bit. And don't be afraid to do all of this. I mean, that's the way you learn how your machine works. And it's always good, I mean, always good to have extra fabric around to practice and play with. And yeah, and don't be afraid to I've never really felt confident going back and trying different things before. And now I know how to do a buttonhole. And I don't plan on doing it on clothing. I'm going to make a shower curtain, and I would like to have buttonholes at the top of my shower curtain for my hooks instead of doing the grommets, because I'm afraid if I put grommets in there they might get water on them and rust, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to try this again, and I want y'all to see a little bit better than that. So make sure I adjust this good. Oops, I did something wrong. I started off and I didn't, that little lever that's back here, I did not push it back again. So it was going to sew it incorrectly because I didn't do it right. So I'm going to put this back under there again, and I'm going to push my little lever back. That's the one thing you have to remember about this machine. And that's the one thing about this. It does it all for you, so you don't really have to try to tilt it where y'all can see a little bit better what it's doing. Oh, it's doing something I didn't anticipate. Let's see. The issues, oh wow, I got it way too tight is what happened. So I'm going to take that out. So it was so tight that it got bunched up. So I'm going to turn it back to F, because F really is a really small, I mean, that's how the feed dogs feed your fabric through. It's barely moving it on F, and when I went close to the 0, it probably just wasn't moving at all. So I would say we don't need to go to that. So I'm going to start again. I'm going to push that. I don't know if it's going to remember where I was or not. Let's try it again. Ah, and there went my thread. So you got to watch that. So I'm going to have to rethread the top. And I'm kind of curious, when I was sewing how the white thread was showing up, you really don't see it. There was a lot of black thread on the bottom, so I might need to adjust my attention some more since I'm seeing so much of that black thread. That might, but it looks better on top, so I like it on top. And I'll just show, for those of you who haven't seen the previous programs here on threading your machine, I'm going to show you. A lot of them have drawings on the top showing you how to thread your machine. This drawing shows you how to do your bobbin when you're winding it. So we're not going to be worrying about that too much because we're going to be worrying about threading the actual machine. So I'm having trouble reaching because the wires are tangled up. So I'm going to take this thread completely out, and it's going to, if you look at the drawing here, this one is for your bobbin, of course, but this one is for the actual, you're threading it down here. So this is one, and you can see where it's just the one. On the bobbin, it actually has a little black circle over it, and you know that since all these numbers have black circles, then they all go together. So there's your 1, and then if you follow down here, it has a 2 that you can, that's just a raised 2, and then a 3, so you go under and then back up here to where it has another raised 4, and that goes over the top of this metal thing right here, and then we'll go down there. But I'm going to go ahead and do the top half, which this is needing to tilt upwards so y'all can see. So, and I might even back you up a little bit so you can see better while I get in here to thread it. So I go over, and I'm following the picture exactly the way it looks on top here, the little drawing that we have on top. And then I'm just going underneath here, and I'm keeping it to this side here to the right, so I can make sure I get over the top of this metal piece over here. I bring it all the way back and then forward until I hook onto it. And then you come back down, and then you always want to make sure that you hook it behind this little metal piece here. So I brought it back there to get it behind here. I can't use my threader right now because of this sewing foot is going to be in the way, I believe. unless I drop it off and get rid of it. I guess I'll do that real quick. Except my needle is too far down. Yep, it needs to be raised up. Move that out of the way. And then I'm just wrapping it around there, and I guess my needle is still not at the right height. So I'm going to look over here. Yep, that little mark that's on the top of here was not lined up with the line on the machine. So I wrapped it around there and brought that forward, and it's going to pull it through for me. Alright, so there's that. Now I'll have to install that again, which is not a big deal. I'm showing people again how that works. So we're going to do that again. I may not have done it in a way that you could see last time, so it's okay to do it again. So we want this little piece right here. That's where that's going to go. And like I said before, you have to raise up this lever even higher to get it underneath there. And then you have to line it up perfectly, because if you bring it down and it's not right there, then you bring it down and it snaps into place. Alright, so there we go. We've got that back in place. And then we're going to try this again and slide it under. And then we're going to start with it in the down position, and I'm going to push this. Is it back? Yep. Alright, had to make sure it was in the back position. And I've got that back on F, and we're going to test it again. Which it had already started a buttonhole, so the top half it has already done, so it's not going to start over and do that again. So you kind of have to finish it for it to finish. And it looks like my left side is too loose, so that's not going to be quite right. As you can see, well, I better pull it off to the side and cut it. So you can see I got my right side the way I wanted it to look. But the other side is still too loose. So I'm going to have to continue to turn it on this one. Turn it this way. I turned it a whole lot. So yeah, don't be afraid to try different things like that. This is the last I'm going to do this one, and then I'm going to show you how the buttonhole works. Because I think you kind of get the gist of how this, it takes you a few tries to get your things to sew the way you want them to. And always make sure that you put your foot down whenever you press your foot before you get started. And I press that lever back again. Let's see. We didn't do any thing different besides it's not moving. It's not moving on. It's staying in the same place. Okay, so I must have turned that dial way too much. I adjusted it a lot. But it sure did affect the way that it was sewing, where it stayed in one place. Wow, I had no idea this one would have to be fiddled with so much. So I'm going to have to turn it back about halfway. Mine sewed perfectly. I wonder if someone messed around with this one before and changed it, because mine was like preset, like the factory preset one. So it didn't have any problems with the left or the right side of sewing. Well, I'm trying to think, what did I do wrong? Because it's still sewing in the same place. reacting totally different. And see, this is a frustrating. I spent probably about 30 minutes trying to get my machine to sew correctly last time. So let me double check everything. I still have it on the right pattern. I have it on the right length. So the width is the only thing I haven't really adjusted. I haven't changed any of that. So, what am I doing wrong? I rethreaded my machine. So, I really hate to... The only thing I've adjusted is this thing on the top. So, I'm going to adjust it a little bit more. And another thing, I'm going to turn off my machine and see if that helps me any. Because I've got that set correctly, and this is like it's supposed to be. I'm going to raise it. I'm just going to start all over, because that's just... You do that with any machine. You always turn them off and back on again whenever they're there, not acting the way they're supposed to. So I'm going to turn it back on and pull that back down, push it back, and then I'm going to try it again, because everything, unless I threaded my machine incorrectly, which I'm looking to make sure that everything is threaded. Yep. The only thing that's different... It's not moving. So something else is wrong. Isn't that nice that it's doing that? I'm trying to think. And I'm trying to remember the machine, whenever I was reading my directions on how to use the buttonhole thing, it didn't give you any directions on what to do if it's not moving. So it's got to be something that I'm doing wrong. Okay, this is all the way it's supposed to be. The only thing that I have actually adjusted and changed... Let's see. Oops, that has gotten in the way. My thread has gotten in the way. Was that dial on the side of the machine? I guess this is why people videotape their stuff instead of do live recordings, because mishaps happen all the time whenever you're doing it live. So pull that down, push it back, and we've got it on the buttonhole setting, and we've got F, and I'm going to change the width to 4 and my tension. I'm just going to change some more things just to see. And see what happens. It's almost like my feed dogs are not working. Let's have a look at my feed dogs. Come on, let's see. Huh, they're moving. That's interesting. Because it's not moving my fabric, is what it's doing. So, I'm going to switch to a different piece of fabric because that one's got stuff all over it. Let's see. So, I'm going to turn my machine off again. Okay, I got that in there. Got that pushed. That forward. Okay. Everything's the same. And I lift it up and turn it on. I'm a little baffled by all of this. It's pushed back. Let's go ahead. I can't believe that everything has stopped working. Oh dear. It's just... Huh, it's working now. It's interesting. It's working now, but it's doing that stitch way too wide still. And I moved it back to the position it was in initially whenever it was doing it too wide. So I'm not real sure what's going on, because it's really not acting the way it should. I wish I was using my machine, because at least it's acting predictably, but this one is not. So, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and have to scratch my head on that one later, since this one is not working the way it's supposed to. But I will go ahead and show you how to... We'll see if we can get the buttonhole to work. It probably will decide not to either, since this is not working quite the way it's supposed to be either. With your button, if you want to do a buttonhole, this is the foot for your buttonhole. Let's see, I turned it the wrong side. And you also have to put a little darning. This is like a darning plate that you put in place whenever you're doing it. And I'm going to have to draw it let's see if I can fit it through the hole. Because you don't want your feed dog to be moving, these feed dogs to be moving whenever you're doing a buttonhole. Because you don't want your button to move. You want it to stay in place. I'll have to play with this machine and figure out why. And show y'all next week what I figured out on why it wasn't working properly. Okay, so that's how you set up to do a button. And I'm going to take that same button that was on here, and I need some fabric to sew it to. I'm just going to use this little piece here. And you want to do it with of course, the top of the button. That's the back of the button. And you have to raise it up even higher to make sure that you get it in place, and you want it to be right where the two holes of the button is, right in between those two places right there. It's got a lot of dust on it. Alright, and with this one, whenever figuring out how to do for your button, you're going to have to adjust several different things. Of course, you won't be able to keep the same pattern you had just a minute ago. You'll have to do a zigzag pattern, which is a 3. So we'll change it to 3, and that's up here. It shows you it's a number 3. And then the length will still be F on it, and then the width can be between 5 and 4, and the tension needs to be on a 5. So it's on 4 right now, but we're gonna have to test it to make sure that it's not going to hit the button. So I'm going to show you. You don't want it to hit so you're going to have to manually turn the knob and make sure that each hole it's going to hit, so it's hitting that hole, which it seems to be not quite right. Getting it in there just perfect. It's not moving, So something's not right. Let me make sure I did my darning plate right. Nope. The darning plate, I think I put on backwards. Let's see here. I was in such a hurry to get it put on there, it didn't line up with the hole. So let's move that. Huh. Okay. I'm gonna have to raise this whole foot up even more to get that under there. Oh, but I have to feed the bottom thread through the middle though, because it'll get caught otherwise. So there we go. The thing about the buttonhole is going to bug me to no end. I'm going to have to figure out what happened, why it's not working right. Okay, so now I got it installed correctly because I didn't have it lined up with the hole underneath. So that's another good reason to just manually test it before you actually start sewing. When you're doing anything like this, you definitely have to, before you actually turn on the machine to start sewing, you're gonna have to test it. Okay, thread, don't get under there. Alright, so now I'm gonna try it again. So it's got that side, but we want it to get the other side. Okay, so it's clearing both holes. Alright, so now I can actually sew, and they say to do about 10. So, okay, that was about 10. And that's one side. And then you pull it out. And what they say to do is, when you get done with this, you will want to, tie these threads on the back side. So you'll just kind of turn it and pull your threads to the back. And you want to tie these behind the button rather than in front of it. Which this is black thread, so it's going to be really hard to see. Well, come on. Well, anyway, I like the way the sewing machine sews the button on for you. I usually hand sew my buttons, but it does a nice, more machine, of course. It is a machine. It does a better look. Does anyone have any questions they want to ask? Because we've only got a little bit left of the class, about problems that you have with your machine that you'd like to ask. I know we've done a lot of tension type things. People have had problems with the getting like a bird's nest underneath it, and that can be a multitude of different issues. Let's see. No, I don't believe. Okay, don't see any other questions or anything. All right, if we don't have any questions, that's kind of it for this time. Like I said, since I had problems with the buttonhole thing here, I'm going to play with it some more and figure out why it wasn't happening, because, well, you know, if you don't have problems and don't have ways of figuring it out, then, you know, you're never going to understand what was wrong in the first place. So tune in next week for me to tell you exactly what I did to get it to work right and what I was doing wrong, because I'm sure there's something I was doing wrong. And you really, truly, the way I figured out what I was doing wrong with my machine was I sat down and I looked at my manual to my machine and read through the directions very, very slowly until I caught exactly what little thing I was doing wrong on it. So we'll go over that quickly at the beginning of next week. And like I've said in the past, if there's any comments that y'all want to make at the end of the video for next time, to say maybe things that you'd like me to cover next time, I'm looking at showing you how to use a narrow hem foot to do hems, which I did some practicing with this one, which you can't really see because I've got all of these little things sewn on there, but how you can do a little hem like that with the edge of your fabric. So I might cover that, and maybe how to do a blind hem stitch. Like if you're taking up your pants are a little too long, like some dress pants or something. Not blue jeans, because I wouldn't recommend doing blue jeans on one of these machines. They're not really built for that type of thing because it's too thick and too heavy of a fabric for one of these to handle. But I can show you how to do like dress pants, or if you want to shorten a top or some sleeves or something like this. This is the type of stitch that you would do for those. All right. If there's no questions, then I'll switch it back over to me, and we'll be doing another class next Friday at 1 o'clock, and I'll see you then. Bye.